welcome back to another episode of The Positive Side. I'm Ann DeSantis, your host. It's always great to be here. I love this show because it's all about positivity. And one of the big parts of positivity that I talk about all the time is faith, having faith. And my guest today, Dr. Antone Raymundo, encompasses that. So I want to welcome you, Dr. Antone Raymundo. Thank you so much for being here on The Positive Side.
Thank you, Ann, for inviting me here. I appreciate that.
Yes, of course. Now, Doctor is a medical consultant. He works in Harrisburg, PA. He's also an anesthesiologist. In addition, he is a Catholic speaker, and he also does retreats. So we have so much to talk about as he is a husband. His wife's name is Liz. They have 7 children. His son, Father Antone Raymundo, was just ordained a Catholic priest. And he has a daughter, Kathleen, who authored a book called Noise, which we're going to talk about all of this today on this episode of The Positive Side. But before we begin, I know that Dr. Raymundo, you wanted to talk about your dad, and you wanted to tell a story about him. Please tell us that story.
Sure. Well, when I give my retreats at various venues, I like to tell about my personal testimony, which encompasses faith, family, and fatherhood. And so it starts with my father, who was back in the Philippines as someone who was just early in their marriage. And he had his oldest son, who was about 4 years old. And this is war-torn Philippines, where his oldest son, my brother, contracted tetanus. And when he contracted tetanus, he had the death throes of the disease, which is called ophistotonus, where all parts of your body is contracted to the point where you get your jaw locked. And so when you have locked jaw, you end up then having respiratory paralysis. So your chest muscles get paralyzed to the point you can't breathe. And so when my dad saw this, he went across to the street, luckily, where there was the only clinic in this small town, to bring his son, who was already suffocating to death. And so when the doctor, and when the doctor saw this, he recognized that my brother had tetanus and lockjaw and was dying from it. And back then, they didn't have these immunizations in the Philippines. It's post-World War II, Japanese-occupied Philippines. And so the doctor essentially was telling my dad there's nothing that he could do. And right at that moment, back in May of 1948.
Was it?
Yes, that long ago, that my mother came in to deliver her 3rd baby. And so the doctor, the only doctor there, he had to triage and decide, well, who should I help? And of course, he had to help my mom, who was about to deliver on that May 2nd. And so what happened was the doctor said, he has to go, your wife is going to deliver, and my dad was distraught, and he belonged to a different faith, and he said, well, isn't there anything you can do? And the doctor said, well, there's this picture that he took off. Now, this is not the original picture. This is our picture of Our Lady of Perpetual Help, where he took this off of the wall in his office, gave this to my dad, and then he said to my dad, ask her help. She knows something about losing a son. So he already left them for dead, thinking that your son's gonna die, he's blue, his jaw's locked, and he's all contracted, and I gotta help deliver your next baby. Well, he goes ahead to the other room and helps my mother. But my dad in that room takes the picture, looks at it, and asks the Blessed Mother. He says that, if you are who you are, I've never done this. If you help heal my son, I will convert to the Catholic faith and have all my children baptized Catholic.
That was your father?
That was my father.
Amazing.
And in that very split second, he made that promise. My brother was released from the lockjaw. He was able to pink up or brown up, since we're Filipinos, so we're brown. He was saved. In the other room, unknown to my mom, when she was delivering, she delivered a baby girl. She prayed too, of course. But when she delivered a baby girl, she intuited that since she had a girl, that means her son was saved. If she had delivered a boy, she thought then that she lost her firstborn son. So she already knew with faith that her prayers also
When
helped.
she heard that it's a girl.
Yes.
That kind of thing.
Yes, and from another room. And this happened all around what we Catholics call the mercy hour, 3 o'clock.
Was it?
Yes,
Okay.
they named my sister Lourdes after Lourdes. There was a miracle there, Saint Bernadette of Subaru in Lourdes, and so she was named Lourdes, and my brother was, healed from that. My dad did keep his promise. He was married in the church 7 years later, converted to the Catholic faith, and had all his children baptized. And that's how we were able to have this faith, this wonderful Catholic faith of ours, and where I go out in my mission to tell people about such miracle stories such as this.
That is a miracle story. I didn't even know the whole, all of the details of it. So thank you so much for sharing that with me personally and
Sure.
our viewers. I'm sure that it's just so uplifting to hear this and a way to also let people know the hope that we have in our faith.
Thank you. I think we have a graphic on this too about, I got from my brother. It's from back again in the Philippines. So
The
if you-
graphic, okay. There's one graphic
the graphic there on to the left is my mother with my brother back in the day there, where it says from the Philippine newspaper that she had her son cured from this tetanus ailment, and that her husband was turned Catholic after being in another faith. And so that just documented back then of what happened in war-torn Philippines.
I'm so glad you have that photo. It's something you always treasure.
Yes, and so the story continues actually, because part of my ministry, and one of the reasons why I'm so glad to appear on your show is because I'm hoping that whoever watches this or hears me speak, that they would want to listen to the rest of the stories, whether it's through Malvern Retreat House, is where I work for them as far as retreats to go, so you can contact Malvern Retreat as far as that. But where I look at myself is when I did anesthesia, what made a good anesthesiologist was not that they put somebody to sleep for surgery, but that they wake them up afterwards.
I remember you told me this. That
Yes.
so profound.
And so what happens is, if they don't wake up, that means there's possibly something wrong, very wrong. Now, what I do and what my mission is about is I try to spiritually awaken people from their spiritual slumber, you see? So I try to rouse them up, especially if they're duped or dazed or doped up with the toxic culture out there. And so what happens is I try to help them find their true mission in life that I learned as growing up in my family. And so what happened with the next story here is when my father, now he's a Catholic, what happens is later in life when he's about 60-something years old, he has this massive heart attack where they actually see that they actually have to do a bypass surgery on him. So actually they did a 5-vessel bypass, and what happens is after surgery, he was wheeled into the ICU, and then he had some massive bleeding. And when this happened, he flatlined and had an out-of-body experience. And he literally felt his spirit come out of his body, where he can look from the ceiling down onto his own body, and the doctors and the nurses trying to save his life. And he saw that they gave up, it was flatlined, and he was taken into a tunnel, light and tunnel, where he actually saw his mother and father.
Oh.
And when he saw his mother and father, they actually told him
Oh.
he had to go back. He was happy to see them. He didn't
Yeah.
really want to go back. But this is the story about where he was told by them, you have to go back. And he said, why? And they said, to help Anton
Is that right?
become a physician. Now, my grandmother had passed away 20, 30 years before. I never knew her. And my grandfather, he died when I was 3 or 4. So I really didn't know him. They both knew my name, and they knew what I was supposed to be.
Oh,
And
that's
so
amazing.
my dad, clinically dead, was revived. So this is my message about people awakening, because this is real life stories that happened in me and my family, that they were awoken.
It really is.
Physically
and it ties in.
spiritually.
It all ties in. We do have to take a break. I mean, I'm really listening on the edge of my seat here, and I'm sure our viewers are also. We have a lot more to learn about Dr. Antone Raymundo. We'll be back in just a few minutes on The Positive Side.
What does it take to bridge the distance and keep them connected to family, home, and country? And what does it take to prepare them for their future when their service to the nation is complete? What does it take to strengthen our service members so they can be the greatest force for good in the world? It takes a force. Be a force behind the forces. Share a message today at force.uso.org.
I want to be a contender. I want a warm belly to sleep on.
A big house.
How do I look? Do I look good?
I want to play hard.
My nails done once a month.
I want.
I want.
I want a home.
I just want a home. I want someone to love.
Last year, more than 30,000 companion animals came to us without homes. 20,000 of them were felines. Let's make some homes together.
Welcome back to The Positive Side. Ann DeSantis, your host, with Dr. Antone Raymundo. He is a speaker. He is a doctor. He's an anesthesiologist in Harrisburg area. And we're speaking mostly about his Catholic faith and the fact of what his family has experienced in their faith and the awakening of their faith. So going back to that, Dr. Raymundo, I was wondering, if there was anything else you wanted to finish with that story that you were telling about your family.
Sure, yes. So to finish up on that story, my dad accepts the message, divine message, so to speak, from heaven, that he's supposed to go back to his body and help me become a doctor of all things. So he goes back and is revived, to the surprise of the doctors, because he was clinically dead and flatlined. And so when I had the chance to speak to him as a young person there, he basically comes and he tells me when I'm in his room, essentially the way I translate it as a teenager is that I came back from the dead so you can become a doctor. So talk about pressure. So, and so as it happens, I did become a doctor, even though I had a background where I didn't have that type of promise in the beginning. I was, wayward as a teenager, and so it was a big surprise. And I did become a doctor out in Milwaukee, met my wife, became an anesthesiologist. But then I had a traumatic accident where I was unable to practice after a botched procedure. So I was left disabled for a number of years, and a few of that I was bedridden. And I had a miraculous healing after that.
You certainly did.
Yeah, and in that time we grew our family to the point where my son, as he grew up and saw me suffering as a disabled physician, and how I tried to retool myself by getting an MBA at the Wharton School in finance and accounting, it affected him to the point where his spiritual life was also awoken to the point that he also was recently ordained
I know.
Catholic
Congratulations.
priest at Philadelphia this past May 18. I think we have some graphics of that.
Well, I know that they show, we do have graphics of your son's ordination, I believe.
Yes. So this is there when Archbishop Chaput laid hands on him, and if there's another photo afterwards, is they lay on the altar there where they ask for help from all the different saints. And if there's another graphic, this is the actual moment where Archbishop Chaput in the cathedral raises his hands over the 7 that are kneeling down to your right, and he says the specific words and asks God the Father, God, to give them the gift of priesthood. And so he is...
Good pictures.
He was, to me, he is now the doctor of souls. He carries on what I wished I could have done. I helped be a doctor of the body, and I told him one day, I said, if you want to do something great in your life, us doctors can save lives, but essentially everybody may will die sooner or later, but you have the chance to save souls, to help them live forever in eternal happiness in heaven. And so that's what he's doing at this time. And the whole story goes on where my daughter as well went to, as a recent graduate at Franciscan University, authored her own book called Noise, based on a true story where it's about, you can find a heartwarming, inspiring story about how you can find joy in the most surprising places, even among the noise.
Love it. And her name is
Kathleen Raymundo. And you can buy the book at Amazon. She drew all the pictures. She's a graphic artist. She drew all the pictures, did the layout, and the script. And so it's a very heart-touching, heartwarming book. Very short read, and I hope you enjoy that. This is part of the story that I share. There's many more miracle stories where I like to let people awake and arise from their sleep. And I use the acronym ARISE, arise, where they awake and they're refreshed, they're inspired, they are then strengthened, and then they are encouraged to a better and beautiful life once they realize all what they are missing in their spiritual faith life. And I hope to bring that to people if they let me speak at their different venues, whether it's Catholic, Christian, or just regular venues out there. I talk in different retreats and in schools and in pubs, in wherever you'll have me, speak this message.
Yes. Now, we're located here at the studio. We're in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Dr. Raymundo, where are you located in the Philadelphia area? You and your family are in Westchester, PA. But I know you were saying that you would travel sort of outside of that area in case someone who's watching wants to have you out for some kind of retreat. You could always fly out somewhere.
Right.
Too,
I've done a national conference of a full weekend. I've done full day retreats. The national conference was outside of Boston, where people from Canada, youth and young adults from Canada and all four corners of the United States came in and heard 6 hours of talks, and they wanted more.
Is that right?
Yes, and I will be speaking at the Cathedral August 8th at the Archdiocesan Pastoral Center Auditorium on August 8th, which is the feast day of St. Dominic. It's the title is St. Dominic and the Rosary.
Okay.
Well, I'll talk about that. And
Archdiocese of Philly.
Yes, and it's for Malvern Retreat House, retreats to go. So if you wanted to get in touch with Malvern Retreat House or malvernretreat.com, you can request me to speak for your organization to speak on various topics. And I'll be there on August 8th at the Cathedral Auditorium. Good. Yes.
Yes. Now, do you have contact information that you'd want to share with people who are watching, either a website or anything, email address that you want to share?
At this point, you can contact me directly through my email at ARMD, that's my initials, ARMD, at mac.com, ARMD@mac.com, and also again through www.malvernretreat.com to book me for any talks or conferences or retreats that you want me to speak at. And I'm having a website that's currently being built and trying to work on this book that I've long wanted to do. So, but my daughter beat me to it. So
Your daughter beat you to it.
She produced one already.
Yeah, don't forget Noise on Amazon. That's called by Kathleen Raymundo. So now, where's your son going to be stationed?
Yes, he is going to be stationed out in Warrington, Pennsylvania, at the St. Robert Bellarmine Parish, and he didn't know until the day of ordination. After the ordination, they made it seem like a big surprise, and it was. And so they usually send some the newly ordained priest furthest away from their parents. So
is that right?
Yeah, so, well, that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, so, maybe.
So he is diagonal from where we live in Westchester. So.
Yeah. Now, I was wondering if there was anything to our viewers who are watching, if there was any other message that you wanted to give them on anything to do with either family life, spirituality, or just getting through tough times. You were talking a lot about dealing with suffering and the fact that God can come through and wake you from that sleep. And
yes.
So I wondered if there was something you wanted to share.
what I also didn't get to mention, I'm a lay Carmelite.
Okay.
And so I'm a vowed lay Carmelite, which means what we do as Catholics is pray. And we have a special devotion in praying. And so I was also trained in mind-body medicine, took some courses out at Harvard for continuing medical education. So what I like to do is to encourage you to pray to God, because during those times when I had got injured, was disabled and on my back, and my second-born son died, and we lost everything. It was like a little Job experience. The thing that got me through was prayer and my faith. And that made me and my wife closer together through all the thick and thin. So even though we lost everything, God built it back up again to the point that we have a priest, another college graduate, and 4 other kids that are doing really
That's
well
right.
in school, that through prayer and faith and God's help, that you can do anything, because through God, you can do anything. Anything is possible.
Thank you. Now we do have to end this show. I want to sincerely thank you for coming on to the positive side, Dr. Antone Raymundo. I wish you and your family all the best. We'll keep you all in my prayers. Thank you again,
Thank you so much.
Doctor. So for myself and DeSantis and for Dr. Antone Raymundo, we will see you next time.